huge sugar glass window. It was like 4 feet by 8 feet, and they weren't going to do it at all, because if you did it once, you had to have like 5 pieces of glass, because you had to do it a number of times, shot from different angles. What if it didn't go well the first time? And I heard this little whispering on the side. And it turned out later on that Steven said it was so important to him that he had that insert of the glass breaking to signify the power of the sound, that Steven had gone over and negotiated that he personally was going to pay for those pieces of glass. But it mattered so much to him. He knew how important it was, and he did use that shot in the movie.
I remember specifically coming down the mothership, and that's another common question. What was the mothership like? And I'm like, well, not a whole lot to it. You know, that was later on in special effects. To me, it was an embarrassing situation because I had to wear ballet slippers walking down on this piece of glass in order to keep myself from falling. And to a 4-year-old male child, wearing ballet slippers is just, you know, it's not a cool thing to do. For the very last sequence where I've come off of the spaceship and I'm with my mom, Melinda Dillon, and he said, Carrie, you need to pretend for me now that you're never going to see your friends again. They're all going away. Well, I didn't understand that he wanted me to pretend. I've been on this movie set for like 3 months. I had not seen my childhood friends from home, and I misunderstood him and thought, I'm never going to see all my childhood buddies again. I got very upset. So when we started the scene, I started to cry, which made Melinda Dillon start to cry, which made everybody on the set start to cry. It was a very pure moment. And from the scenes, I earned a nickname, One Take Carrie.
Because he was so spontaneous, you couldn't have a take two. So most of Carrie's shots are take one. Almost all of Carrie's stuff in the movie is take one.
And Steven had a shirt made for me that said One Take Carrie, because a lot of the things that you see in the film were the first or second take that Steven Spielberg set up for us to do.
I had a lot of pre-production time and a good year on the project before we started shooting. So I was sort of messing around with a lot of different concepts, and the alien certainly was one. And I made some sketches, naive little sketches of two little creatures, based on articles that I read on how people saw these little things.
I wanted the aliens to look like aliens. I did not want the aliens to look like people in costumes. So my first idea was to get an orangutan and dress the orangutan up in an ET suit and let the ET behave almost simian-like. So we actually got a spandex suit and dressed this orangutan up in this bodysuit and then put this head on. And then I also be interested to put him on roller skates and push him off of a Mylar ramp. So he'd come down like he's floating. Well, it all went wrong. We had a couple cameras set up for the test feed. For one thing, the first image was, you saw the handler bringing out the orangutan, and then you saw the orangutan running back and jumping into the handler's arms. And it got to be almost like a taffy pull, with the orangutan being shoved out by human hands. And the minute the guy tried to let go, the orangutan would turn and grab onto the hand, and then climb up the body off camera, and then 4 hands would push the orangutan out. The orangutan would grab onto 2 of those 4 hands and grab back onto a body. We finally got this thing on roller skates by pushing him out. He went like this. First thing he did was he grabbed his head and ripped it off and threw his head away. Then he went roller skating backwards down the ramp. And I realized in about 5 minutes that wasn't going to work. So plan B. Plan B was to do marionettes. I was going to marionette 70 aliens and have 70 puppeteers on scaffolding above.
There was one test that needed to be directed and shot on the stage of some puppets. And it involved trying to solve what the lighting would be like and how the puppets would move and what frame rate you'd shoot at, et cetera, et cetera. So I shot a test of that very lanky, thin puppet that comes out and sort of hovers out and puts his arms up. So it's like a wire-hung puppet.
But this is before the age of wire removal, digital wire removal, and unless you could light it. So none of those wires showed up. There's no way to get rid of the wires. And I did a test on that, and no matter how they lit it, you'd have to go below all the wires. We were going to have big arcs. We had almost 80 arcs on that in that dirigible hangar. There was no way you can go 60 puppeteers with like 500 strings. And that was just impossible. I mean, you almost project visually how that wouldn't, be workable. So I threw that out, and my last idea was to actually have little girls, because they move differently than little boys, much more gracefully, in costume. And we just tried to reshape the configuration of their bodies a bit, so they wouldn't look too human, and that's what it wound up being. And also by backlighting it, and letting the camera flirt with the aliens flirt with the camera.
The Steven decided that when we shot the aliens to really not show them too much. We shot them in silhouettes and we shot them with a lot of lights, overexposing them. We just wanted to create shapes and a mystery about them rather than really showing them.
We had different tools of the kids who were playing the extraterrestrials. A lot of them dropped out because they started working months and months before the actual sequel. Susan Heldfond was the movement coach.
She was wonderful. She really was a dancer, and she was able to train all of these little girls, about 60 or 70 of them, how to move and how to walk, and she did a wonderful job making almost like a dance troupe.
The extraterrestrials were supposed to, and this never really worked out, they were supposed to move very, very quickly. Now, they were going to shoot the extraterrestrials at a lower speed so that it would appear that the action was all speeded up. So the extraterrestrials, to accentuate this, they were all supposed to shuffle their feet and move their hands like this and move really jumpy. Then when the film was speeded up, they would be so fast, they would be like flies buzzing around. They would be so excited. Well, in the meantime, they simultaneously trained a bunch of mimes who were pretending to be technicians, American, from Earth technicians. So the mimes would run over to see the extraterrestrials in slow motion, so that when the camera was sped up, they would get to be correct, and the extraterrestrials were going like this, fast hands, fast feet, they'd yell. They would get even faster, and it would all be this perfect blend. But of course, you can't really deal with human motion that way. So there's no real way to slow yourself down so that you all speed up correctly. And some were on wires, they flew, they twirled around. It was very complicated. They worked for months and months. They couldn't use any of that stuff.
I remember we shot a lot of different things that failed.